I transformed from a calm kid into a bullied outcast. 3 years of isolation fueled my rage. Now, a new relationship challenges my emotional walls. I have always been a calm individual. Even as a child, I was not particularly emotional. I simply acted based on what seemed logical. My parents were good, but physical affection and emotional support were not significant components of my upbringing. I was neither neglected nor abused. I just wasn't nurtured in that manner. Growing up, I lacked genuine social skills. I was not shy, but I did not understand how to connect with others. I appeared calm on the outside, but inside, I harbored a rebellious spirit, a need to break rules, test boundaries, and exhibit aggression. I lacked a filter and had no real grasp of right and wrong outside of what I could avoid being caught for. Eventually, I subconsciously recognized that this behavior was not sustainable. By around the 6th grade, I developed an internal filter, unwittingly training myself to be functional and appear normal, although I remained quiet and withdrawn. By the end of middle school, I had transformed into someone who could blend in. Then came high school. I was completely torn apart, and this is not merely a typical story of high school misfortune. False rumors circulated about me, serious ones involving sexual harassment, rape, and so forth, intentionally spread as revenge by some individuals I had a falling out with in 10th grade. People I trusted gradually turned against me. I became a social outcast and a target for harassment and violence. I was bullied, cornered, and assaulted. I got into 20 fights in 3 months and even had a near-stabbing incident. I lost my first girlfriend to health issues unrelated to everything else, adding to my burden. For 3 consecutive years, the cycle of isolation, betrayal, and violence persisted. My naive self often fell for invitations from girls at my school to hang out, only to find myself ambushed by 12 guys waiting there with sticks. No one intervened. The administration did nothing. Some individuals attempted to defend me, but it felt like a consuming virus. Even those who had been my closest friends eventually stood by and watched. It was a prolonged, painful lesson in how expendable I was to those around me and how easily manipulated people could be. Everyone was essentially the same, a blank slate that, when faced with identical circumstances, would display the same behaviors. When it finally ended, I was not the same individual. I grew to despise people, cried angry tears every night, and endured a persistent, deep-seated rage like a flame beneath my heart that lasted for weeks. I contemplated exacting revenge on the girl who had instigated this torment, making plans, and began training in Muay Thai and boxing. I honed my skills, but it simply did not feel sufficient. I understand where I might be without my passions. Hint, not here with you all, if you know what I mean. I coped with philosophy, formulating theories to find meaning in my suffering, pushed my drawing and painting skills to elite levels, developed a remarkably quick jab, bench-pressed 225 pounds, and expanded my knowledge. Yet I still could not escape my anger. The rage returned, but everything else, trust, softness, attachment, was gone, replaced by paranoia, arrogance, anger, and emotional barriers. Jokes failed to land, social interactions gradually decreased, and empathy plummeted to zero. I processed emotions logically, but at this point, all I genuinely felt was anger and self-control. This kept me sharp and prevented me from making foolish emotional decisions. However, it also meant that I struggled to trust people, believe in kindness, or connect in any meaningful way, and I hated that. It limited me socially, and deep down, I was afraid of myself. I recognized that the menacing version of me, as a child, was worth monitoring because beneath my facade lay that same deep-rooted rage, now amplified and, at times, justified. There were moments when I came close to losing control. My filter felt like a heavy dining table pressing down on me. At times, I approached the brink, feeling as if I might push the table off, but I always stopped and allowed it to fall back onto me because I feared the consequences. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me, which only reinforced my hatred of people and distrust of women. I spent a month meticulously planning my revenge on her. I won't delve into the details, but it would have been quite effective. I know how to inflict pain. I can be manipulative and scheming, not that I am some sort of archetypal villain. I am genuinely sharing my experiences here. I don't know, I'm afraid of the unrestrained version of myself. It has been several years since those days, but I am a different person, and not for the better. I feel nothing for anyone, not for my parents, not for my siblings, not over failing math exams or misplacing my house key. Threats do not intimidate me. Insults do not hurt me. Nothing you say can trouble me. I do not care if I stub my toe. I do not care if you consume my last serving of cheesecake. At first glance, this may seem advantageous, but then it becomes clear that it affects relationships as well. You cannot love, you cannot be vulnerable, you cannot melt into someone's embrace. My relationships are pragmatic and calculated. Everything I do feels like I am merely playing a tedious game of chess rather than truly living. I had it all, yet I still felt unhappy. I would spend my evenings in a furious rage, filled with hatred for those around me. Then, 3 months ago, I went on a date with a friend from high school, and I must say, I had an extraordinary time. It caused me to rethink everything and wonder if, as Drake said, I have been down for so long that it feels like up to me have I simply closed myself off from experiencing emotions because I was never given the opportunity. We ended up in a relationship. I was hesitant. I still did not trust women or people in general. I sought patterns to convince myself that it was not wise, yet I chose to give it a chance anyway. Now, she is my girlfriend. I thought the hatred would dissipate, and for a brief moment, it did, until she began to engage in seemingly innocent actions that set off my internal alarms. I found it challenging to open up to her, to accept that she would not harm me, and to believe that she genuinely liked me for who I am. I am intelligent enough to recognize that it is not her fault, but my anger began to manifest towards her, not outwardly but solely in my mind, thanks to my self-control. I contemplated breaking up with her, slowing things down, and so forth, only to realize that, deep down, I truly do care for her. Being with her felt like waves crashing against the shore, like cherry blossoms swaying in the breeze, like a midnight stroll. At times, I felt at peace. But I was still masking my emotions and pretending to empathize with her problems, still acting as though she was my entire world when, in reality, I felt very little for anything, not just her, so please do not misunderstand. What prompted this entire reflection was my girlfriend recently describing me as an emotional teaspoon. She remarked that I do not express enough, providing her little to work with emotionally. I recognize that she is correct. However, this is not only about her, it is about me. I do not want to spend the rest of my life consumed by this. I do not wish to be so controlled that I have nothing left to feel. I realize that I can survive this way I already have. But how do I ensure that I do not self-destruct into hatred in the process? Story 2. I confronted my mom about prioritizing my brother, causing her to cry, and now she won't even look at me. I feel both guilty and justified. My brother is a 32-year-old man, and I am a 17-year-old individual with autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My brother suffers from schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, similar to my mother, while I inherited bipolar disorder, autism, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I am significantly different from my brother, and while my mother does a great deal for me, there are many things that she does not provide, which my father compensates for. I cherish both of them deeply, but my brother is dead to me, and I refuse to change my stance. Starting from what I can recall from conversations, and everything I've learned about my brother before I was born, he was the only child and was considered a golden child. He could request anything, and my diligent father would make it happen for him. Between the ages of 12 and 14, my brother played football for his school and was among the top players on the team. Unfortunately, a concussion ended his athletic career, although he did earn trophies and plaques that adorned our walls. When he reached around 14 to 15 years old, he shifted his focus to snowmobile racing in our home state, becoming one of the finest racers in the region, albeit not statewide. His talent garnered him significant attention and some sponsorship deals. However, as he began to bask in the spotlight, he fell into smoking and drinking, which infuriated my father, while my mother remained silent, being protective of her firstborn. I was born when my brother turned 15, leading my parents to focus more on me than on him. He would vie for attention and praise, but continued his habits of smoking and drinking. Around 16, he dropped out of school and resorted to prescription drugs and partying, which deeply upset my father. My mother, on the other hand, insisted to my father that my brother was merely embarking on life. During this period, my brother also began having encounters with the police, resulting in occasional arrests. When he was 17, he attended a party where he sexually assaulted a girl, leading to his first significant incarceration at the age of 18. Both of my parents were heartbroken because they believed he was falsely accused. From ages 19 to 21, he continued to get into trouble, building a record of arrests and charges for resisting arrest. On one occasion, he took me, himself, and our cousin out unsupervised while we rode bikes. My brother deliberately crashed into me while we were descending a hill, which led to severe trust issues and scars on my legs. I was approximately 4 or 5 years old at that time, and my father was extremely angry, evicting my brother from our home. However, my mother, while my father was at work, allowed him to return, enabling his drinking and drug use. The first major incident occurred in the spring of 2016, shortly after I invited my best friend over, who had just relocated and transferred schools. Suddenly, my inebriated brother began yelling at my father from the front door of our house. He kicked the metal door with enough force that it dented, as my brother weighs 230 pounds. My father called the police, and after a while, my brother managed to break in. I was near the entrance when he assaulted me by punching me before my dad intervened, which culminated in my father's back injury from an impact in the kitchen. My brother was arrested and sentenced to around 6 years. During his imprisonment, my mother called him every other day, neglecting me and making me feel isolated and unloved, which negatively impacted my academic performance. She would express her anger by yelling at me when my father was at work, saying things I am uncomfortable repeating. After 2 years, my brother was released on parole and managed to maintain sobriety for a brief period. The second major incident occurred when I stayed with him to escape my mother, as one of his girlfriends at the time took good care of me and had a child with whom I would play. Unfortunately, my brother resumed drinking and began physically abusing his girlfriend and her child. When I emerged from a room, he saw me and attempted to attack. I managed to retreat into another room, lock the door, and call the police using a flip phone given to me by my parents. To make a long story short, my brother returned to prison, and I began attending therapy afterward. When I was about 12, my brother was released on parole again and came to our new house. He attempted to assault us, but by then, my father had acquired firearms for self-defense. My dad called the police and threatened to shoot my brother if he came near us. The police arrested him shortly afterward, sending him to a rehabilitation facility. Both my dad and I suspected that my mother had disclosed our whereabouts to my brother, putting us at risk. She made excuses, stating that he is her son and she loves him, among other similar remarks. A few days later, my brother escaped the facility, tampered with a computer system, and accessed someone's bank account in an attempt to withdraw money, but was apprehended by the police. He was sent back to prison and has been denied parole since 2020. Despite this, my mother continues to deposit money into his account and calls him every other day, insisting that I speak with him as he is family. I personally do not want to communicate with him due to the numerous traumas he has caused me. There have been many disputes between my father, my mother, and me concerning him, extending from late 2020 to the present. She relays details about our lives to him, which affects me profoundly as I feel my privacy is being compromised by both her and him. A few evenings ago, she insisted that I talk to my brother, claiming I certainly had the time because I spend all day playing games and practicing guitar. I was already overwhelmed with homework, researching colleges, taking tests, applying for jobs, and studying while trying to integrate my hobbies. When my mother demanded I speak with him, I told her no and explained that I did not feel comfortable thinking about him. She left my room for a time, but unfortunately, that was not the end. Approximately 20 minutes later, she re-entered my room, yelling about how I hate her and have ruined her life and my brother's. I finally broke down and told her that all she had ever done for me was cook and clean, and nothing more. I also confronted her about her somewhat recent addiction to marijuana since it was legalized in our state, and how she had neglected me for years because my brother took precedence over me. I stated that I have a future compared to him, as I am not a felon or on any sort of registry. She became furious and began yelling and crying, claiming that I was a worthless child and she wished she had aborted me. I continued to voice my frustrations about times she unleashed her anger on me, and how all she does is languish around the house, smoking marijuana all day and complaining when something needs to be done. My dad shouted at me, suggesting I had gone too far since I had made my mother cry, and said we would discuss it later. It has been a few days since that incident, and my father and I talked about how I could have stopped when I saw her crying, but he understood my anger. My mother continues to avoid speaking to, cleaning for, or even looking at me. Am I in the wrong for yelling at her about how she enables my brother and neglects me? For your information, I cook and clean for myself and know how to do so, but my father insisted she do it for me while he works to support us. He has stated before that the least she can do is cook and clean for both of us for all I do. Story 3. Doing everything the right way made me miserable and fucked up my life, and maybe my child's life too. I really dislike writing this, but I feel compelled to do so. I apologize for the length of this message. I have been with my wife for over 10 years and married for 8. I am male, and we share a toddler. We live in a decent house together, so you might think everything is quite good. I have always been quite introverted and enjoy my alone time. When I first met my wife, I was not even in a mindset to contemplate being in a relationship. It was never something I particularly desired, but as they say, when you know, you know. Of course, I do love my wife and still mostly do. During the first year after our child was born, I felt a profound sense of despair daily. I didn't want to end my life, just wished I could disappear. Whenever I could, I would close my eyes and attempt to meditate, pretending I was not there. I experienced emotions I had never felt before, even more intense than when my mother passed away. Honestly, I would advise against having children. Upon the arrival of our child, I took on every responsibility. Initially, this was manageable. I believe every father should take significant time off at the beginning to assist, as their partners have just given birth. Since my wife was unable to breastfeed, I managed all the bottle feeding. My wife's cooking skills leave much to be desired, so I handled all the meal preparation. She also struggles with cleaning, leaving that task to me as well. My wife has difficulty sleeping, so I would rise every hour during the night to soothe our child back to sleep for at least half an hour, often even longer. This has been our dynamic from the beginning, and it persists, although thankfully our child now sleeps through the night. I have consistently worked full-time, while she has worked part-time throughout our relationship. I have always handled the cooking and cleaning for reasons that remain unclear. As a handy person, I frequently undertake home renovations to save us money. I am not bragging, these are just the facts. It has been over a year since I genuinely felt like giving up. I love my child, and happiness seemed to be present, or so I thought. My wife claims she feels disconnected from me, stating that she does not receive enough attention. Here's the reality. I work from home now, and even years after our child's birth, I am still present in the house 24/7. If I am not in my home office, I am with my wife and child. I continue to do all the cleaning and cooking. I still wake up with our child while my wife sleeps in for an additional 2 hours, and until very recently, I was still primarily responsible for raising our child. My mental state has certainly improved since I took a step back, though it is not a real step back. I now have a maximum of 4 hours a day away from my child. I spend more time at home with my wife and child compared to most other partners, yet it is somehow insufficient. I tell her I love her every day, yet she insists she doesn't remember and believes I never say it. I surprise her with flowers, snacks, special treats, and coffee whenever I am out. If I purchase a chocolate bar, I make sure to also get her favorite. I can't even recall the last time she surprised me with anything. I believe it was a donut her mother gifted me, using a coupon. I expressed a desire to pursue a new hobby, perhaps meet new friends since I have virtually none, as I am quite introverted. This seemingly became the worst thing I could ever propose, and I was told, "How can you justify spending money when we hardly engage in anything I want?" I wish to invest no more than $700 in this hobby, a one-time payment. Do I need to mention that I am currently in my home office surrounded by over 200 worth of gifts for her birthday? Clearly, I am such a selfish person, right? I am the primary earner and hold nearly all our retirement savings solely in my name. Therefore, I believe I am entitled to make decisions regarding those funds. Furthermore, I am the primary reason she has a roof over her head, as she is unable to work more than 10 hours a week at a very easy job. However, considering her feelings is something any good spouse ought to do. So I did. We literally went out for dinner last night. Our last outing prior to that was a week ago when we enjoyed brunch and did extensive shopping. Do you think I want to go clothes shopping during my free time? Not particularly, but I do it because I care for her. The previous outing was on Valentine's Day. Before that, we took a multi-day trip while her parents looked after our child. I truly don't understand where this notion comes from. I generally enjoyed all of those activities, they were my wife's preferences, and we had fun together. Additionally, I discovered today that she holds me responsible for not having more children. After we had our first, and only, child, I decided to have a vasectomy. I initially agreed to have a maximum of 2 children, while she desired 3, which I now regard as a joke. She often expressed, "The only thing I want in life is to have kids and a large family, nothing else matters." Yet she struggles to manage one single child. Let me share this, if someone tells you, "Don't worry, I will take care of the child, I will handle most of the responsibilities." Do not believe them, walk away. I made the choice to undergo a vasectomy, something we both agreed upon, as we did not want more children, or so I thought, because she seems incapable of caring for even one child. Even today, 2 years later, she can hardly manage our child for even half a day, and that's with her family's assistance. Once again, I managed the first few months alone while she remained in bed. This has had a lasting negative impact on my mental health. I still experience significant brain fog and memory issues as a result, and have become reliant on depression medication. I reached a breaking point and threatened self-harm. Sleep deprivation combined with a colicky baby is torture. Finally, my mother-in-law came over to assist us for a few weeks. I subsequently found a new in-person job that I somewhat enjoyed, but I could not maintain it because she was unable to care for our child, even with help from her parents and sister. I resigned and continued as the primary caregiver for another 1.5 years, with only brief assistance from someone else. I just don't understand why I continue to persevere. Honestly, all I have ever wanted in life is to live in a rural area, likely alone, on my own property, pursuing my own interests. It is incredibly tempting to simply walk away, inform her that I will pay off the mortgage entirely, and allow her to keep the house while I find my own place. Nowadays, I feel like a pack mule, a burden forced to bear everyone else's issues, expected to endure without complaint or acknowledgement. 1 year into our relationship, 9 years ago, we had a major argument, and I packed my belongings, intending to leave for the local bus station to return to my parents' home. For reasons I do not understand, I chose not to go, and I deeply regret that decision. As I mentioned, I am quite introverted, and I should have simply embraced that. I anticipate divorce might be on the horizon, but my wife has threatened to take her own life if that occurs. Therefore, I remain for the sake of my child. I lost my mother at 23, and I cannot fathom growing up without one. If you have read this far, I applaud your perseverance. Consider this a lesson: do what you want in life. None of this matters. You are not obligated to conform to others' expectations of what you are supposed to do. In my mother's final years, I endeavored to make her proud, and she was proud of me, yet she is gone now, and I find myself lacking pride in myself. Story 4. I am not sure whether I want to be with my partner, 25M, together for 9 years, and bought a house. Over the past year or so, I have been contemplating whether I want to continue my relationship with my partner. I am seeking guidance as we have shared a significant amount of time together and have supported each other through numerous family-related challenges, such as bereavements, mental health struggles, and financial difficulties. We have invested considerable effort into our relationship, and I genuinely wish to address our issues because I believe any new partner would not fully comprehend the experiences we have navigated together. On the surface, everything appears fine. He shows care for me, is financially responsible, and is overall a reliable person. However, I feel that I have lost the spark we once shared. Although it occasionally resurfaces, my passion and desire for him seem greatly diminished compared to what they once were, and I feel that we no longer enjoy each other's company. Our arguments have increased over the past year since we purchased our house. I often feel as if I am managing the household alone, Even though he contributes, I notice he tends to clean only half-heartedly. For instance, he might leave food remnants in the sink or fail to thoroughly dust furniture. He often claims that he does not notice these things and is willing to help out more if I specify tasks. These seemingly minor issues have snowballed into greater resentment that I am trying to overcome. A significant challenge has been my decision to turn down a job opportunity in London to remain with him in the north, as he was not interested in relocating and did not believe our relationship could withstand long distance. This led me to focus less on London and reject a position I received on the outskirts of the city in a field that intrigued me. Instead, I found a graduate job in a prestigious company in the north, and while I appear to be doing well career-wise, I deeply dislike this job. I find it monotonous and not worth the stress for the compensation. I often reflect on how different my career path could have been if I had chosen to move and followed my instincts instead of my emotions. I harbor some resentment towards him over this decision, as I now feel trapped in my current role due to a training contract. With the economy facing challenges, I am struggling to identify my exit options. In contrast, he has been thriving at his job, receiving praise, bonuses, and positive feedback, while my confidence has eroded, leaving me feeling depressed. Although he does not particularly love his job, he excels in it, while I am objectively not performing well because of my dissatisfaction, despite my punctuality and reliability. I worry that during my most confident and adventurous times, I played it safe by moving in with him, ultimately leading to a lack of fun moments like going out with friends or creating memorable experiences because he was deeply depressed due to family bereavement, and I wanted to support him. University was incredibly stressful for both of us as we were financially strained, with no parental assistance, being the first generation of university students in our families. After graduating, we landed these demanding jobs, and I feel like I lost a part of myself in our relationship by opting for security and stability rather than embracing spontaneity, resulting in a mundane existence for us as a couple and as individuals. I have become increasingly anxious as I reach an age where I lack fun stories or memorable experiences, given the stress we have both faced, and we have both acknowledged that we no longer know how to enjoy our time together. Intimacy has also become a problem. What once excited me has faded, and I haven't experienced that longing for him in quite some time. While we have openly discussed incorporating toys and exploring new experiences, we have settled into a routine that now feels awkward to break. Additionally, the emotional and physical connection has suffered due to our ongoing arguments. Moreover, we do not share mutual friends, which limits our experiences together in social settings. Although I have spent time with his friends and vice versa, we rarely connect during these gatherings and tend to engage with others instead. I do not feel particularly close to his friends, which adds to my discomfort. I can't help but think we both exhibit different sides of ourselves around friends, missing out on the best parts of each other, particularly as we tend to thrive in social settings with others, but struggle to connect when it's just the two of us. I acknowledge my role in this dynamic. I have found it challenging to be enthusiastic around him due to emotional exhaustion from work, and I feel obligated to put more effort into maintaining our home, while he may only react when things become significantly untidy. I am more of a cleanliness enthusiast, which creates tension. Much of my concern has been ignited by observing others around me getting married and engaged. I realize that if he were to propose, I would be uncertain about my response. Although I love him, I no longer experience that in love feeling and would like to resolve our issues before committing to marriage. I have personal challenges surrounding the concept of marriage, largely stemming from my mother's infidelity and the distrust issues that arose, so I acknowledge these feelings may be rooted in my own experiences. However, I find myself wondering if I would even want to marry just to protect my financial interests if things were to go awry, especially since I have been saving longer than he has. Simultaneously, I feel guilty for having these reservations and wish to feel excited at the prospect of him asking me to be his wife, much like I did a few years ago when I thought he might propose an experience that filled me with anticipation. I feel profoundly lost, recognizing the positive aspects of our relationship, such as trust, respect, and genuine care for one another. Yet, external factors have introduced substantial stress that has hindered us from engaging in the aspects of dating and enjoying life that many young couples experience. I feel more like a married couple who cohabits and needs counseling rather than a vibrant and lively couple in their early 20s, and it frustrates me. I have never cheated, but I have experienced flirtations that remind me of the sexual chemistry and tension I miss just with him, not someone else. The job-related stress has significantly impacted my outlook, widening the rift between us. I understand I need to work on my mindset, especially regarding feeling like I must be the more assertive partner in various life aspects. Therefore, I seek third-party opinions. Is it too late for us? Are we beyond repair? We both recognize the precarious state of our relationship and have openly discussed our need to address these issues. I simply do not know how to unpack these emotions. Is this situation fixable? I never expected it to be this difficult. It wasn't as challenging a few years ago, and I feel insecure when comparing our situation to others who are happily engaged and enjoying life with their partners. If we were to part ways, it feels like a significant waste of time, and I doubt anyone could ever understand the family challenges we've faced since childhood as well as we do for each other. At the same time, I genuinely do not know how we can address these challenges, as neither of us feels close to the other. I apologize for the length and structure of my message, but this is the first time I have articulated these feelings in writing and shared them at length with anyone other than him, so any sincere advice would be greatly appreciated. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for threatening my ex with a restraining order 7 years after we've broken up? I will be using fictitious names because I do not want anything to come back to me from my former partner. To provide some context, I, 28 years old, female, and my ex, Mark, 29 or 30 years old, male, were high school sweethearts. I met him when I was 15 and he was 16. Initially, I was speaking to a friend of his casually, but when that relationship did not lead anywhere, he and I began dating instead. Fast forward through high school. I started dating him in my sophomore year, and throughout my high school experience, our relationship was exceedingly unhealthy. He cheated on me repeatedly, broke up with me several times, including one incident when my guardian discovered that we were sexually active, and he claimed he did not want to deal with that drama, which stemmed from the fact that he was my first partner, and my guardian wanted me to start birth control. We remained together until after my graduation, and the emotional and mental abuse I experienced from him is something I continue to address in therapy. He often told me I was fortunate he would tolerate me, claiming I was so depressing that no one else would ever want to be with me besides him. I have been clinically diagnosed with depression, and he used that against me consistently. When I turned 20, we moved in together, and that is when things deteriorated significantly. He began to accuse me of infidelity continually and would not allow me to go out with friends or family unless he was present. He also displayed physical aggression not directly towards me, but in my presence. For example, he would throw glasses close to my head, but never hit me, and would break or kick doors. During our arguments, he would scream and hit himself, claiming I treated him poorly and that I could not comprehend the depth of his love because I was incapable of such feelings. His emotional abuse grew more severe, and if I was stressed from work, he would say he was going to get extremely drunk, drive, and that if anything happened to him, it would be my responsibility. Despite his horrible treatment, I was young, and after years of abuse, I came to believe that no one else would ever love me. I come from a broken family, which I struggle with because my parents and relatives did not show me affection, and it felt as though he recognized the insecurities to exploit. Shortly after moving in together, he proposed. I anticipated this, but felt hesitant and didn't know how to exit the situation. He proposed in front of 3 of my friends, 2 of whom he had accused me of cheating with multiple times. I reluctantly accepted, and for the months that followed, I attempted to convince myself that I was happy and was on the right path. He proposed in August. By October, I started a new job, and meeting new individuals and making friends highlighted how much happier I was without him. I began taking extra shifts at work, staying out late, and doing anything possible to avoid being at home. We were preparing to move into our new apartment, which would be our first place together. I was responsible for all the bills while he barely worked and spent most of his days either high or hanging out with friends. In February, I ended the engagement and asked him to leave. I began to live life on my terms, and aside from a few weeks when I attempted to reconcile, we ultimately separated later that same year. I finally managed to remove him from my life a year after he proposed. Initially, he tried to reach out to me multiple times, claiming he wanted closure, asserting that I owed him my time, and checking to see if I was happy, along with inquiries about how the new person I was dating was treating me, essentially all the usual excuses people make when they struggle to let go of a relationship. It has been 7 years since, and I have also started a new relationship, living with someone who makes my life incredibly enjoyable in every aspect. I began therapy shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic because my depression and anxiety became overwhelmingly bad. I am making significant progress mentally and have reached a place I never thought I would, yet my ex caused considerable damage, which remains a central issue I address in therapy. One of my greatest fears is running into my ex or him finding out where I live, showing up unexpectedly in my life. Many people have reassured me that feeling paranoid is normal, but that since so much time has passed, I shouldn't be concerned. Even my current boyfriend tries to comfort me, emphasizing how long it has been and suggesting he has likely moved on as I have. However, this past July, while celebrating my 28th birthday with a small group of friends in San Diego, we had been enjoying our time without any issues for 3 days and 2 nights. On the 4th day, I woke up to my phone buzzing from an unknown number. I was slightly hungover and thought the call might be from our Airbnb host reminding us about the cleaning crew. I couldn't answer, but it woke me up, prompting me to start waking up my friends and packing our belongings. While I did this, my phone rang again, and this time it was my text message notification. I opened my texts and instinctively knew who it was. The first message read, "Happy belated birthday. I know it was 2 days ago, but I promise not to bombard your phone. I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday." I knew immediately who it was, but I asked for confirmation, and he replied with his name, Mark. He then requested to call me to talk and hear my voice. I immediately replied, "Never contact me again," and blocked his number. For the remainder of the day, I received calls from an unknown number, and he left me several messages pleading for me to answer and talk to him, repeatedly insisting that all he wanted was to hear my voice and that he didn't care if I cursed him out. I never answered his calls or responded in any way. However, his reaching out threw me into a full state of panic. I felt paranoid, fearing he knew where I was or where I lived. Upon returning home from my trip, I quickly arranged an appointment with my therapist, who suggested I take this information to a lawyer in case things escalated. I followed her advice and called my business attorney. I explained the situation, including all the history with my ex, and inquired about possible actions I could take. He informed me that I could not technically file for a restraining order because my ex had not threatened or harmed me physically, but I could take measures to ensure Mark would leave me alone. My attorney then asked if I knew where Mark lived or if I had any idea of his whereabouts. I told him no, as I had completely severed ties with him. My lawyer then asked if I was in contact with any of his family, and I again said no, though I mentioned I could reach out to his mother via social media. My lawyer advised me to inform her that I had consulted my attorney, that Mark was making me feel unsafe, and that if he contacted me again, I would be officially filing charges. He also recommended I keep her updated on everything we had gone through. I messaged Mark's mother, expressing my hope that she was well and stating that I regretted contacting her under these conditions, but then explained the situation. She viewed the message and reacted with an angry face, but did not respond further. I do not know if she relayed the message to him, but I have not heard from my ex since. Still, I worry that he might show up in my life unexpectedly. Some people in my circle believe it was wise to involve a lawyer, while others argue that I am overreacting because my ex never physically harmed me and merely called. I feel reasonably confident that I did the right thing, yet I also question whether I might have overreacted. So, am I the antagonist in this situation? Story 6. 9 years together, yet our connection feels broken. I became the sole provider, seeking help around the house intimacy. Why am I always the one to initiate? Am I asking for too much in this relationship? I, 33 female, and my fiancé, 40 male, are not connecting as much as I would like. We have been together for 9 years, with the last 2 years being engaged. We have lived together for 7 years. Both of us were first responders, but I chose to return to school for a graduate degree while continuing to work full-time. The original plan was for me to graduate and then for him to pursue his graduate degree. However, nothing went according to plan. For the past year, I have been the sole income earner. He has been involved in an ongoing legal battle with his previous employer and withdrew his retirement savings to support us. I graduated and have been working towards a promotion. I have not yet transitioned my career to utilize my graduate degree because we cannot afford that at the moment. I earn more than I would within the field I would like to enter. I do not necessarily view that as a significant downside because I can engage in my chosen field on my days off from my full-time job. My fiancé has been supportive by meal prepping to accommodate my busy schedule. He has also dedicated time to self-care and fitness since his previous job was tough on his body and mind. I have encouraged this because he had never indulged in self-care or taking a break before. He has had more time to concentrate on activities he enjoys, and I am happy for him. My concern lies in our differing views on various matters, such as household tasks. He has casually assisted with the dishes, but typically waits until my days off, expecting me to initiate house cleaning, laundry, pet grooming, and so on. We have talked about this extensively, and I have expressed that I would deeply appreciate more help around the house while I am away, so it does not become overwhelming during my days off. However, there has been no change. Then there is the issue of intimacy, or rather the lack thereof. I know what I desire. I want a hand on my backside, my hips, and my lower back, along with gentle caresses on my shoulders or neck. I want kissing and playful teasing. I have never kept this a secret. Yet, we continue to struggle with this issue to this day. Every time we engage in sexual activity, it feels like a chore. I am usually the one who makes it more adventurous and takes the initiative. We have discussed it, and he has never viewed it as a problem. I find him attractive, and he claims to find me attractive as well, and I have no reason to doubt that. But why does it feel like such a challenging situation that only I am grappling with? I dislike that this is even an issue because he is a wonderful man. However, I cannot help but feel unfulfilled. Although he has always seemed somewhat reserved, he has opened up over the years we have been together. Still, I feel it is not enough. I'm ashamed to admit that I often reflect on a past relationship where my partner matched my sexual needs and desires. We both used to initiate intimacy. I struggle to find a way to recreate that connection in my current relationship, especially since I feel I have initiated conversations and actions, yet nothing has changed. Is there something wrong with me? Am I just a needy woman who needs to relax? Summary: I just want to be intimate with my fiancé, but I do not want to be the only one taking the initiative. Conversations have not been effective.